The 417 Gamers is a group of board, tabletop, and card gamers in the 417 area code. This is the podcast. Hey guys, some quick show notes. David from Board Game Famous had me and Andrea on their podcast. We got to go on and talk about games we've played. We got to suggest the game of the fortnight. And for the Brother Talk segment, we got to become honorary brothers and talk about Moon City Con. So check over at Board Game Famous on their next episodes. Honorary brother. I don't know what that means. Do we have to get them presents now? David! Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, episode 20, the one with trains. In the 4, Andrea and I talk about 4 games that we've been enjoying recently. We talk about Booopp, we talk about Village Rails, we talk about Paper App Dungeon, and we talk about Empire's End. In the topic of the show, Logan from the 417 Gamer Group stops by and he talks train games with us. We ask him, what's a train game? Because there's some people that may disagree what a train game actually is, and what does it have to have, and what does it do? And then in the 7, we talk about our favorite 7 train games. Let's get on to the 417 Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamers. My name's Rick.
And I'm Andrea.
In the 4, we discuss 4 games that we've been playing recently. Andrea, we got back from West Plains, OzCon number 10, and we played a sequel to a game we really enjoyed.
Booopp.
Booopp. Booopp is designed by Scott Brady and published by Smirk and Dagger or Smirk and Laughter Games. We really like the original Booopp with the kitties. So what does Booopp add?
Ghost Boop.
Ghost Boops.
There are ghost kitties in addition to your sets of kittens and sets of adult cats. There is one, each player gets one ghost kitty that instead of, he doesn't travel on the actual squares like the regular kitties do. He goes on the lines in between the squares.
Yeah, he
like a ghost through the walls.
Floats along the stitches.
Yeah, in the walls, a ghost in the walls. And as he passes by the other cats and kittens, he scares them and bounces them back a square, which adds another element to predict where you want your cats and kittens to be by calculating where the ghost boop is going to be in the next turn or two.
The ghost could boop you to a win.
Yes.
So the ghost is something that you can play at the end of your turn, and you play it on a stitch on the edge of the board, and at the start of every one of your next turns, they will move one stitch forward, one space forward.
Yeah.
They're between 2 squares, and they boop those 2 squares. But they do not provide any support for kitties. Kitties can boop right through them because they're not material.
Right.
They're ghost kitties. But the ghosts can boot both kittens and cats, which is a nice little wrinkle to the game.
Yeah.
But we really enjoyed it.
I think it's a nice little spicy pickup.
We picked that up, probably around the Halloween holiday.
Yeah, it came out at Halloween.
And sadly, it kind of got put on the pile, as some games do. And we're like, well, we'll play it again. And we did, and I'm glad we did.
And there's a Christmas theme
coming.
Yes.
And we're excited about that.
Yes, we are.
One I've played that you haven't gotten to play is Paper App Dungeon. Paper App Dungeon is... Ooh, it doesn't show me who it's published by. I'll have to look that up. Paper App Dungeon is a solo game in its own box. You have a pencil that actually has... it's a 6-sided pencil that has numbers 1 through 6 on it. And you can roll the pencil, and that is your 1 through 6 on what you get to move. You have a notepad, and each of the pages of the notepad is a randomized generated dungeon. That is a grid system. There are treasure chests. There are hearts for healing. There are spider bugs for attacking and taking your health away. There's money. And if you get a coin, you add it up. At the end of it, there's in one spot on the map, there will be a staircase. When you hit the staircase, you add up all the heals you got, you subtract all the damage you took, You add up all the monies you took in, and if you hit a web, the web will steal some of your money, so you subtract all the monies you lost, and then you take that total and you go to the next page. Most of the time, the next page will be... and then sometimes the next page is a shop. And the shop might get you some heals, might get you a one-time portal to use sometime where you can just portal over to another area. Whenever you take your rolls, if it's even, you can move orthogonally, up, down, left, right. If it's odd, you have to move on diagonals. If possible, you're not supposed to backtrack. You're supposed to keep on going, which could put you in a pickle sometimes where your next roll, your options are hitting a 4 spider and a question mark spider. The 4 spider, you're taking 4 damage. The question mark spider, you roll and you can randomize what damage you take, which, depending on how you roll, you could get a 1 or you could get a 6. And I tend to roll high.
You do.
So do I just take my 4 and thank goodness that I got it? This is published by Lucky Duck Games, and the designer is uncredited on this. What is something else we've played? Andrea, we played Empire's End.
We did. Twice.
We did. This is designed by John DeClaire.
Played it once at 4 and once at 3.
We did. And one of the plays kind of crashed.
We had one of my friends playing who was a lightweight gamer, and I'm not sure what a weight of game this was rated on BGG.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it was light enough that a newbie would be able to play with us, and it was a little more difficult than
2.35 is the rating out of 5.
Yeah,
but it's not just the complexity; it's also the mentality that it puts in the game. So, in Empire's End, it's every round something's going to happen, and a lot of times it's bad. So, if you're running into a disaster round, you flip over a card from the disaster deck.
Mm-hmm.
It tells everybody where they're going to put a fire in their tableau of 11 cards. And that property is going to potentially be demolished. And everybody starts putting resources on that card until somebody goes ahead and demolishes their property to take the resources. And those resources could potentially repair stuff later. But more than likely, it's just so they don't have to take other calamities that are going to hit them.
Because sometimes there's a double disaster.
Yeah. And I enjoy the game, but I absolutely understand that it's just... You have... It's fires that are just bursting all around you, and
fires and floods and famines and barbarian attacks. And
you know the cartoon where there's a little hole that hits the dam and the cartoon character puts his finger in there, but as soon as he does, like 3 more pop open. It's the game. And I think it's funny, and I enjoy it for what it is, and I don't want to play it all the time.
Yeah.
But I can absolutely appreciate somebody that doesn't care for that.
Right.
That, hey, I'm already trying to learn a game, and games are supposed to be fun, but I'm not enjoying this. And I absolutely understand that.
Right.
There's a game you didn't get to play yet, but I want you to. It's called Galaxy Trucker, where everybody builds their spaceship at the same time, and then each round you send your spaceship out there, and you're going to flip over events. And sometimes it could be asteroids that just fly through a side and take out a chunk of your ship. And sometimes it takes out your life supports, or your weapons, or your cargo bay.
Yeah.
And you could have just a little bitty pod of your crew like floating in space to try and get to the finish line. And I find that funny. But some people hate that because they took the time to build their ship and they got their ship just the way they want it, and all they did was see their ship just destroyed. So, buyer beware on Empire's End. I absolutely understand those who don't care for it, but I liked it. So that was Boop, that was Paper App Dungeon, and that was Empire's End. The other one we played in the theme of the show and we were talking about maybe doing this as the review, but I think we're going to back off of it, is Village Rails. So, Village Rails is designed by Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert. It is published by Osprey Games. It's a small game. I mean, it's small table presence-wise,
right.
but there's a lot of game in that small box.
I would agree. It's a little box, and you've got cards and tiles in there, but by the time you get it all laid out, it takes up quite a bit of table space.
Yeah. So on your turn, everybody has this little gridded rail system that they're going to start playing to. You have a little, what would you call that? A little window. You have a left side border and you have a top side border. From there, every round you're going to draft a rail card that has to be placed. And they have to be placed in a landscape format. And they're going to continue a train line of something that's on the board. Either from a border space or from another card that's already been played.
Right.
Then you may take a trip card. A trip card is something that's going to help get you more points in your scoring rounds.
Right.
If at any time your rails run all the way to one of the opposite borders that don't have the cardboard bordered area, you score that rail line.
You have completed your line.
You have completed that line. You're going to get points based on if you have a barn, it wants all the same type of terrain of what that barn symbol is. So there's pastures, there's forests, there's lakes, there's towns, and there's one other. There's 5 terrain types. I'm missing one. But the tractor, the farm tractor, it wants different terrain types because it wants to sell its stuff to everybody.
And every time you lay a card down, it has different requirements that it wants, in addition to the track that you're laying down.
So you play that out. Other things, you have like signals. Signals have numbers on them. They're just worth flat points. And you have, I think they're called sidings, but they look like a switchback.
It is.
Those don't score until the very end of the game. It plays pretty easily, I thought. I thought it was an easy teach, easy learn. And couple knocks. When we played it at 4, we ran out of resources. We ran out of money. And I think we were 2 cards short of having the full display once we got to the last player's turn.
The last player's turn, there was exactly 1 card left. So you had to take the 1 card that was left. You had no choices to make.
On the trips. We had enough for all the rails, but then the trips, I think we only had 1 card in that display. Yeah. So that was all you got.
Right.
Do you spend your monies for that trip card, or do you just keep your 1 point? Because at the end of the game, you get points that you scored, plus every $3 is worth a point. But I enjoyed it.
I did too.
But art-wise, it is extremely dated. I think it was said by a couple of people that they were like, this is only 2 years old. This art-wise feels like it's from, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Right.
But it's also a train game, and if you look at the art on train games, they are generally dated.
Right. Because it's the old-style locomotive, and the old-style cars, and, like what you think from the 80s and 90s. It's that type of art. There's no, super fast trains. No, right. It's all rail cars, and there's no passenger cars. But I liked it too. I did think when we played it at 4 that it went on for a really long time. It took us 1:45 minutes to finish it.
Yeah.
A lot of that was because all 4 of us, there were 3 of us that it was our first time to play. And there were a couple times where each of us took a little bit of time to take our turn because we were trying to figure out, which was the best card to choose. And
because there was a puzzle there in the middle of it.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of puzzle going on. So if you were playing with people who'd played before, I'm sure it would have gone a little bit faster. I'd played again, no problem. But I did think that first play that we had took a little bit long.
A little long for what it was. Also, the art on the cards, the symbology is at the corners of what terrain type.
Very tiny.
Not just tiny, but it wasn't dark enough for it to stand out against some of the artwork.
Yeah.
But no, that was Village Rails. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I think we're going to have Logan on in the next segment, and we're going to talk about...
train games.
Yes! Let's go over to the topic of the show. Hey guys, you are listening to the 417Gamer podcast, but instead of listening, why don't you come out and play games with me and Andrea? Moon City Con is taking place June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Hilton Garden Inn in Springfield, Missouri. There'll be games to check out from the lending library, play-to-wins, door prizes, vendors, tournaments, so much to do. Get your badges at mooncitycon.com and have some fun with me and Andrea. The one in the 417Gamer podcast is our topic of the show, and we've got a friend from the 417Gamer group. Logan, say hello.
Hello.
We brought you on here because we're talking train games, and you've played a few.
Just a handful, 7 at minimum. Maybe even more depending on your definition of a train game.
What is your definition of a train game, Mr. Logan?
It's a spectrum.
Uh-huh.
So you have games that are like definitely 100% a train game, like 1830. So that's like one end of the spectrum.
Uh-huh.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have games like Great Western Trail that have trains in them. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a sliding scale. I don't think there's one easy definition of a train game.
So you would put Great Western Trail in the train game sphere?
If we were doing like a scale of 1 to 10, it would probably be at like 0.1.
0.1.
Yes.
Okay.
Out of 10.
So what makes 1830 more of a train game than Ticket to Ride?
For one, it's better. Now, train games, they're economic games mainly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they'll have kind of a shared incentive element. I haven't actually ever played Ticket to Ride, so that's kind of a bad way to phrase it. So I'm not sure what I'm comparing it to. But there's shared incentive, there's stock holding, a lot of elements like that. And a lot of train games have more of an economic focus.
Yeah, but there's other games that have stock holding but don't have trains. Are those now train games?
I don't think so.
Okay. So BGG's definition is train games often involve gameplay and imagery related to railroads and rail vehicles. Many of the most popular train games are set in the late 19th and 20th and early 20th centuries, although some games like Lunar Rails are set in the future. So that is BGG's just description.
So basically a game that has trains in it.
Yes.
I'd say that's a pretty fair definition.
Is that pretty fair?
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Like 80% agree with that.
80% agree with that. What makes a train game fun for you?
I really like the economics of it.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm kind of a nerd like that. But you can really approach it, calculate it out. There's not a whole lot of luck in it. A lot of it is just sitting down and thinking of a plan and trying to execute on that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, actually probably the biggest thing would be player interaction. Train games tend to have a lot of player interaction, and I look for that in a game. I don't really like games where you're just sitting there and everyone's just got their head down over their own little tableau or what have you. In a train game, you're looking up. You're looking over the map and seeing what other people are doing. And you're having to take everything into account. You can't just...
So everybody's engaged the whole time.
Yes.
Not just one person takes a turn and you can mess around on your phone and just check out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we played Age of Steam a week before this recording, and you could not check out on that game. Because I stood up to go take pictures like I usually do. When I came back...
We all stole his money.
Well, but I was... Even though we were only on, like, the second round, standing up put me at a disadvantage already. Mm-hmm. And then I made another misstep, like, not the 7th round, but the 6th round. I needed to swap the order in which I did things, because it made at least a 12-point difference, maybe more. But, yeah, I did enjoy that. I like both ends of the spectrum. We'll get to our top 7 list in the next segment, but... I like light games like Ticket to Ride, Trans America, and Paris Connection, as much as I enjoyed Age of Steam, Steam Rails to Riches, I just don't enjoy the 18XX series, which is in its own category.
Yeah, it really does. It's kind of a subcategory of train games. A lot of games fall into the 18XX category. A lot of them fall into what you hear called the cube rails category,
Yeah.
which I'll talk about that some because a lot of my top 7 here
What
are
are cube rails, sir?
A cube rail is a style of train game. Usually you have hexes, although not necessarily hexes, but basically you're putting cubes, or in some of these fancier new ones, train meeples, onto spaces on a map to kind of abstract out your train network.
Yeah.
I'd say that would be the one thing that unites all the cube rail games. Although a lot of them also have kind of a shared incentive and stock element as well.
Do most of them also have that pick up and deliver mechanism that Age of Steam has, or not necessarily?
Generally, cube rails do not have a pick up and deliver. Ride the Rails has a little bit of a pick up and deliver mechanism,
Yeah.
but even then, the meeples just go wherever you take them. There's not like a specific location. So yeah, I think you could argue that that's not even a true pick up and deliver.
Yeah, you
because
take
of
the
that.
passenger and you take them as far as you decide.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit of a pick up deliver, but that's probably the most pick up and deliver cube rail I've played.
18XX, what is that and what differs that from the rest of the pack?
18XX is a style of train game. It's very in-depth, very complex. A lot of emphasis is on separation between your money and company money. Players might own and run multiple companies and try and shuffle the money around and organize things in such a way to get them the most money. There's also a lot of stock market shenanigans. You have stock rounds where you're trying to buy and sell stock to manipulate the market to your advantage. And then outside of that, you have operating rounds where all the companies actually do their thing and are controlled by whoever is the president of the company.
Yeah, and then there's something I've listened to on other podcasts where they talk about dropping a stock on somebody. And then there's also like a train rush. So what is dropping a stock?
Okay. I think what you're talking or referring to, a lot of times they say dump a company on somebody. So that would be a strategy where if you and another player were both invested in a company and the other player had a big enough investment but was less than yours, sometimes you could manipulate events to where you take most of the value out of the company and try and shuffle the money and the trains into a different company that you like better for whatever reason. Maybe you're more invested in that, or you're thinking that's going to be your company going down the road. And then when the stock round comes around, there's a little bit of turn order shenanigans as well. If you have priority over the person you're wanting to dump on, you could potentially sell a bunch of shares and then transfer this not so good company over to this other player. It would be dumped on them.
Gotcha. So now they become president of a company that's not worthwhile.
Yeah. And the bad thing is, or the worst part about it, is that in most 18XXs, companies are required to own a train, or in certain circumstances. If they have a route, they're usually required to own a train. And if they can't afford a train because someone, for example, looted all the money out of it and all the trains and dumped it on somebody, then the player who's the president has to pay for a train out of pocket. And so that can potentially be a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
If you weren't expecting it.
So the train rush that I alluded to is at certain rounds, well, whatever you need to, you can buy a train to improve your company. And if your train is too old, you can't run anymore.
Yeah. See, that's the flip side of that. Because a lot of it involves around what your path to what they call a permanent train is. Because as people buy trains and better trains become available, the older trains start to rust. So they get discarded. They're removed from the game, go away. And of course, remember, every company has to have a train. So that means by the end of the game, every company is going to have a permanent train, one way or another. Either that or the game will end with someone going bankrupt because they can't afford it.
So now that your ceiling is so high for train games, do you still enjoy more simpler train games?
Yeah, I still enjoy simple train games. I like the they have a good ratio of depth to rules complexity. So a lot of them have rules that are decently simple, but lead to a lot of depth, a lot of interesting interaction between people.
Right.
So you every year go to a convention that is based just on one train game?
Yes, I go to Age of Steam Con. I've been there twice now.
Yeah.
They've got another one coming up this November, so shout out to Age of Steam Con, November 7th through 10th. I don't think they have sign-ups open yet, but they've announced that date. And it is a train game con centered exclusively on Age of Steam, which is a train game.
So not just a train game con, just on one game.
Yes. Yes, last time I went and played 15 games of Age of Steam.
Wow.
So different maps, different things.
Yes.
I imagine we'll be seeing the game on your list.
Uh-huh.
But what's the coolest map, in your opinion, that you got to play?
Probably my favorite Age of Steam map that I play at the con is one called Spain and Portugal. It has two gimmicks. The first gimmick is that you play in partnerships. Normally you play Age of Steam, you're just on your own. But either 4 or 6 players, you play in partnerships. However, you don't win as a partnership. At the end of the game, you look at the partnership that has the most points, but the player who wins is the partner who has more points out of the two. So that's the first gimmick. The second gimmick is that instead of urbanization, which is an action in Age of Steam where you build a city and put a new city on the board, it's replaced with an action called insurrection. The difference is all the cities start already built on the board, and when you take the insurrection action, a city is destroyed.
Nice.
So lots of chaos, lots of city burning down. Just an interesting map in general.
Nice.
So, Andrew, you and I generally play on the opposite side of the spectrum of train games.
We do.
What do you enjoy about train games, and what are you looking for in your train game?
Well, I don't know that I have one specific answer to that question. I don't have any that I haven't liked. I mean, we have played the whole gamut of introductory little, ticket to ride level, up to the hard Euro games. We have a really good time.
And I would like you to play Age of Steam. Just allergies were kicking your butt that week.
Yeah, that's the one I haven't played yet.
Yep.
But I do look forward to it.
And we've been playing the Iron Rail series from Capstone.
Yeah.
And African Rails is coming out soon. I think you and I both have it. Pre-ordered.
Yeah, we've both pre-ordered.
But Andrea's played all the way up to Iberian Gauge, and she's like all of them. Irish Gauge is her least favorite, and it's the least complex. And she liked the others significantly better.
I think that probably was because we played the whole series in one day.
We did.
And so perhaps if I hadn't played the others so close together, my opinion might have been different.
Yeah, for a Black Friday, we went through all of the Iron Rail series.
Heart's black as coal.
Yeah, it was a good day.
It was
Played
fun.
all 3 of the games. And honestly, when we get African Rails, I wouldn't mind doing it again. Not necessarily on a Black Friday,
Sure.
but pick a day and play all 4 of them. Maybe not Irish. No, I'd still want to play Irish Gauge. I like Irish
well, they're
Gauge.
all different enough
right.
that they're enjoyable.
But that's Train Games with Logan. And we've heard that you like train games. Why don't we go to the top 7 train games?
All right.
All right.
Let's see.
You've heard us talk about how much fun that we have playing games in the 417 area. How do you link up with the 417 Gamers? Well, we're on Meetup at meetup.com/417Gamers. Or we have a YouTube page at youtube.com/417Gamers. And every first of the month, we list all of the gaming events that you can expect in the 417 area. Check those out, see where the games are, come out, play some games with the 417 Gamers. The 7 in the 417 Gamer podcast is our top 7 in a given category. We've brought Logan on here. He likes train games. Logan, what is your 7th favorite train game?
For number 7, I put down Prussian Rails.
What's an elevator pitch for Prussian Rails?
Well, first let me mention this. If you don't recognize that name, that's the name Rio Grande Games is going to print it under.
Yeah.
Queen Games printed it under German Rails, and it was originally titled something else, but I forget what that third name is.
Sure.
But those are all the same game. So the elevator pitch for Prussian Rails is turn order in each round is random, but the amount of actions you will get in a round is also random. How it's determined is depending on how far you are ahead on the score track, you get a certain number of discs put into this bag, and then these discs are drawn out at random and placed on an action track, and then we do actions in that order. So potentially, say it's me, you, and Andrea playing, there could be 2 Rick discs, 2 Logan discs, and an Andrea disc, just all mixed in this order.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of chaos on that as far as the turn order mechanics.
Nice.
Is that what makes you like it? Is the chaos?
Yeah, I like it. I haven't played it a whole lot, but it was an enjoyable cube rail game.
Nice.
Another thing would be each railroad also gets a special power associated with it, and that also kind of serves to mix things up a little bit.
Nice.
Very good. Andrea, our number 7 is going to be Steam Rails to Riches. You haven't gotten to play this one yet.
I haven't.
This is by Martin Wallace. It was published in 2009 by, I want to say it was Mayfair at the time. This is a precursor to Age of Steam.
Kind.
There's an option to take actions, and then everybody gets to take a specific action. You're building track. You're delivering cubes. There's a hex board. There's different maps that you can play. I kind of want to play both of those side by side because I liked it, and maybe because Age of Steam was the new shiny and that's the freshest experience. I'll tip my hat a little bit. It might be a little bit higher, but Age of Steam, Rails to Riches, I like quite a bit.
Yeah. No, I think Steam's a solid choice. I think I do prefer Age of Steam to Steam.
Well, yeah, you don't go to a Steam Rails to Riches convention.
No, they don't have one for that, believe it or not, or at least not that I'm aware of. Maybe there's one.
Do they have other train game conventions?
Yeah, there's a couple out there for 18XX games.
Nice.
Logan, you're number 6.
All right, number 6, I've put down Ride the Rails. In my opinion, this is the best of the capstone cube rails we've seen so far.
Yeah.
I say so far because I'm not counting this Kickstarted one yet.
Because it hadn't been in your hands yet.
We'll circle back to that.
Okay.
But I also think it's the best auctionless train game I've played. Most train games tend to be auction heavy, or a lot of them, maybe not all of them. But of the ones that are auctionless, I think this is the best one I've played.
Andrea, what's our number 6?
Chicago Express.
And I'm staying with Chicago Express. I don't care what Rio Grande has renamed it. Mm-hmm. Chicago Express, I think, is a 07 print by Queen Games. It is designed by John Bower. So Queen Games is Chicago Express. You are building rails from the East Coast going west to about Chicago's kind of your cutoff. I think you can get to. Can you get to Kansas City?
I don't think so.
You can get to an abstract of St. Louis, but I can't remember if you can get to Kansas City.
I think
or not.
you can get to Indianapolis. I think. I don't think you can get to St. Louis. I don't think you can get to Kansas City.
But you can get to Chicago.
You can get to Chicago.
So in this game, there's hexes. There are various company boards. As you play the game, companies may potentially open up. You are spending money on stocks, and as the money you spent goes into that company, if you have shares in that company, you can take the money to build rails out. And you can do it nice if you want to help the company and help everybody around, but at a certain point, other people might buy more shares in the company than you have, and each time you build that company's rail lines, you may be helping them more than you, and then you stop helping them altogether, or maybe even try and hurt the company actively. I've seen many different ways to play it. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it. It's like dipping your toe into a stock trade game. Yeah. But I really enjoy that. The new reprint by Rio Grande is going to be called Wabash Cannonball, but the box art hurts.
Honestly, I can get past the box art. The map is pretty bad.
Yeah.
The box art, I can allow for that because the original Winsome box art, I think, was similar to that, at least in quality, if not that image. Wabash Cannonball is actually the original name. Queen renamed it for their version of it.
Yeah, I like their version better.
Actually, I think I like the Wabash Cannonball name better, although the Queen print is definitely the better of the two prints to have.
Nice. All right, number 5, Logan.
For 5, I put down Wabash Cannonball.
Hey, it's too bad you were wrong.
So, yeah, basically everything Rick just said. This is kind of the classic cube rail. This is the go-to. It's not the oldest one, but it was one of the earlier ones to get a professional printing outside of Winsome when Queen did it. I believe back in 2010. But
it's a clean game to teach to newer players.
Yeah.
But it still has enough bite in the strategy for seasoned players to get into as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth to it. And there's a lot of things that aren't obvious even looking on the surface. But it's just a really excellent, well-made, well-balanced cube rail game.
Our number 5 is Age of Steam, and I'm absolutely going to drag Andrea into a game in the future. Thank you, Ethan and Ben, for teaching me the game last week. Age of Steam, it's a mean game in the fact that you make a bad turn, can hose you for the rest of the game. And that's even on the base map. And you've told me that many of the maps are very even more unforgiving than what I played.
Yeah, there are a lot of meaner maps out there than Rust Belt.
Yeah.
Rust Belt is your beginner map, essentially.
Yeah.
On the other end, you have maps like Zimbabwe, where you lose half your money at the end of the turn, no matter what, among several other bad things that can happen. That would be kind of the other extreme, but there's a lot in between there. There's a lot of
nice. Logan, you're number 5?
Let's see, for number 5, I put down 1889.
Yeah.
So 1889, it's almost my 18XX stand-in entry. Why pick it over other ones? 2 reasons. For one, it's shorter than most 18XXs. It's on the shorter length, although it's still about 4 hours. It's just, for me personally, 4 hours is probably the max for any board game, even a trade game.
Even if you did that big double map Steam that you were talking about?
Well, that's about 4 hours.
Is that 4?
Yeah. So, after 4 hours, my enjoyment really starts to tank a little bit. I mean, I'll make an exception every now and then. But, yeah. So length, that would be the big one. I also think it's the best of what people consider beginner 18XXs.
Gotcha.
A lot of times people mention it, 1846, and 18 Chesapeake as being the good 18XXs for beginners. Of those 3, this is the best one. 46 isn't a bad game, but it's not necessarily the best for beginners because there are some kind of chrome elements, extra stuff tossed on top that you don't see in other 18XXs.
Yeah.
In Chesapeake, a lot of people view that as just kind of a watered-down version of 30.
Right on. Andrea, our number 4 is
Railways of the World.
AKA Railroad Tycoon. This was originally published in 2005, designed by Martin Wallace and Glenn Drover. The most recent publishing is by Eagle Griffin Games. Railways of the World is an easier version of Steam or Age of Steam. Whenever you start the game, you have to start taking out loans. And loans are negatives against you. But then you start making money. And then as you go along the point track, things start getting better for you and you get more income. But at a certain point, you cross a threshold and then they start getting worse for you again. You have a lot of points, but now you're taking on more debt and you're trying to make connections. There's bonus points off to the side, so if you connect certain towns, depending on what map you're playing, you'll get bonuses there. As you take all the cubes off of a town, the newer Eagle Griffin games, you have these little 3D printed pieces that you put on there because that town has been completed. You cannot take any more cubes off of those towns, no more resources. I enjoy it. It's a game we're going to have to get you to play too, because I also have some of the maps. I have I have Nippon rails, I have the British rails.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. Have you gotten to play Railways of the World?
No, I haven't played it. I think it's kind of in the same family as Age of Steam and Steam, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
I haven't played that specific iteration of it, but it seems all right.
All right, you're number 3, Mr. Logan.
Number 3. This one, a lot of people probably haven't heard of because it hasn't been printed widely yet, but West Riding Revisited.
Okay.
Rio Grande is going to reprint this one. I was able to play a copy of it at a con, or twice I've played it at different cons where people had the original Winsome Games version of it. And if you've never seen a Winsome Games that was actually produced by them as opposed to just licensed, it's construction paper cut out and printed on, and so very low quality.
And this is one of the games you were thinking about maybe doing your own print and play, wasn't it?
It would have been like a sheet of paper and a pile of cubes, so yes. Yeah. But they are going to print it officially with the mounted board and all that lovely stuff, so I'll probably wait and pick it up.
Right on.
But now, as far as the game itself, it's a cube rails, but what makes it different from, say, Chicago Express or Ride the Rails is that it has mergers in it. There are 6 minor railways and 2 major railways. And as these minors expand and connect to each other, eventually they'll touch in these certain cities and they'll merge there and kind of bolster the major railway that's partnered with them. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic with the auctions, because you're also trying to buy shares in such a way that you can trade in your minor shares for major shares potentially and get money that way.
Yeah.
And so it's got a lot of interesting stuff going on there, a lot of interesting stuff to juggle.
Sounds like it. Andrea, our number 3.
30 Rails.
Had to be a roll and write on the list. Come on. I like my roll and write games, and 30 Rails is actually a free-to-play print and play off of BGG, Board Game Geek. It was designed by Julian Ansley, and I actually have a homemade or made from a friend. Our late friend Brad Morton had his wife still has Republic Printing. He made me a copy that was laminated, nice art. He put it together. So 30 Rails, it's a grid. It's a 6x6 grid of squares. At the start of the game, you're going to roll some dice to get your some terrain on the board. You're going to put some mountains, and then you're going to put a station on the north side, the south side, the west side, and the east side. And there's just stations 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then, from the rest of the game, you're going to roll 2 dice. The light die tells you where you can put the track, and you have to put it in the row or column of the numbers. And the dark color die indicates what kind of track piece you can put. A straight, a curve, a switchback, a cross piece. At the end of the game, each of the stations you're able to connect get you points. And then you also have a mine that you'll put somewhere on the board that's connected with the mountain. Each station that was able to connect with the mine will get you points. But everybody's rolling or filling in their board off of the same rolls. So you're going to have those times where Andrea put a straight somewhere, you put your straight on the left side of the board, and I put mine south. And at the end of the game, I have a good score, Logan has an okay score, and Andrea's mad because I didn't roll that straight when she needed the straight.
Yeah.
It's true.
You got to watch Rick with his rolling rights.
Yeah.
For a while, it felt like every other week he was bringing a new rolling right out to game night.
I do like rolling rights.
You'd come in, Rick would come up to you and say, "Oh, hey, you want to play this game about a fantasy adventure?" "Oh, yeah, sure." You sit down, it's a rolling right. The sci-fi game, it's also a rolling right. This one's about well, that one's also a rolling right. It's kind of, he's backed off a little bit, but the rolling rights are still kind of polluting the train game top 7 list.
Yeah, it are. No, I get into a little a groove of a certain style of game. Sometimes it's rolling rights. There for a little bit was worker placements. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is right now. It was last year. We just need to play all the games on our unplayed shelf, which we did pretty good.
Maybe it's going to be train games, Rick. Maybe you're about to enter your train game era.
Oh, maybe so.
I don't know. Logan, you're number 2.
For number 2, I have South African Railroads.
But you don't have this yet.
Yeah, I played it at a con, though.
You cheated.
Yeah. No, I've played it, I think, twice at cons. Or maybe once on Tabletop Simulator, once at a con, something like that. But yes, this is Capstone is releasing it as Age of Rail, along with Pennsylvania Railroads, which is essentially the same game but with a different map. What makes it different from some of these other cube rails I've mentioned is that it's what people call a point-to-point map.
Yeah.
So instead of a hex grid, you have all these points on your map, these different cities or mines or what have you, and there's links in between it, and you put your piece down on a link to claim it and show, oh, this is my piece of track. And so that changes the game in a couple ways. It makes it a lot easier to block people, because, on a hex map, you can just maybe take a larger route around, but a lot of times with the links, there's not really a route around. You're just stuck if you get blocked. It's also... the money is very tight in South African Railroads. You're going to be struggling for a little bit there before you build
you like
your
the
company.
train games where you struggle?
Yeah, I like the pain. Yeah. But yeah, you really have to watch how you spend your initial pot of money, because it is very easy to blow all of it and then just be stuck. So you gotta really plan ahead.
Andrea, our number 2.
Ride the Rails.
Ride the Rails is published by Capstone Games, designed by John Boyer. Logan had this at 6.
Yes.
I really, really like this game. There is that player interaction, but it's not, you're not directly touching or hurting anybody. You're building rails along the lines, and you're getting stocks. And as you're building them, at the end, you take a meeple off there, and they ride the rail, and based on what rails they run, gets you points, and then gives shares to the companies based on which of those rails they rode, and trying to math out how to get yourself the most points, and either not give your opponents any, or trying to make it to where the leader is not going to stay in the lead anymore.
Yeah.
Is a fun puzzle.
Yeah. You have that kind of shared incentive
Yeah.
mechanic you see in a lot of trade games.
And Andrea, what is our number 1?
Trombone.
Why do you like Trombone?
Well, because it's one of the games I can play, and I feel like I have a pretty good shot of beating you.
You do.
Which is rare.
Yeah. Trombone is designed by Helmut Ole, published by Mayfair Games originally, but I think it's now picked up by Lookout Spiel. In Trombone, you're making trolley lines, and there are 4 different color lines. There's yellow, brown, blue, and green. On your turn, you must play a couple passengers to the lines. If there's 4 on a particular platform, it automatically scores before you get to take the rest of your turn. The game only goes 10 scores, so once 10 scores have happened, game's over. Then, after you've played the passengers, then you can start playing to your lines. And they go chronological. So if you play, they go 1 to 10, and if you play a 5 on the blue line, you can't go back. And then at the end, you can play a train to that line. If there is no trains to that line, those cars that you would have played get discarded into money, or at the end of your turn, you can also just chuck your cards into money. Because the cheap trains at the start off at $5, and that's it's a double multiplier. So your first round of trains are double multipliers, second round of trains are triple multipliers, and the highest are quadruple multipliers. And the points are on the train. So like a 1 car is worth 1 point, but the 10 car is worth 3. So you add up the points in the trains, and you get your points whenever you do a score. I really like the play of it, the back and forth, and then it's that game of chicken on who's going to score that line, because Andrew and I may have almost exactly the same points, but can I sneak out 1 more card in my train line before the passenger hits the platform so I can get more points than her? Or do you just go ahead and bite the bullet because she might be able to do the same thing?
Yeah.
So Trombone.
And we kind of debated on whether or not this was a train game because there were no rails.
There's rails. They're cable cars. There's rails in the road.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like it's more of a card game with a train theme.
That's fine. I'll take it. Logan,
But we still like it.
All right. For my number 1, I put down Age of Steam.
What?
Ba-ba-bum.
Imagine that. But no, it's just a really solid train game. Of all the train games I had on my list, and probably most of the ones on Rick's list, it feels the closest to actually running a train company.
Does it?
Yes, it does.
But does it feel like running a train?
No.
Okay.
But the company, yeah. Because you're having to make good decisions for your company. You've only got one. You got to stick with it.
Yeah.
You can't just dump it on someone else and say, oh, that's too bad. Nope. You're locked into your color you picked there at the start there. It's kind of just the granddaddy of a lot of economic games. There's kind of a whole process you go through and go around, which a lot of economic games have that kind of loop. But you got your turn order auctions, you got your special actions, you're building, you're delivering. It's just it's a nice gameplay loop to build off of. And there's a lot of maps out there, so there's a lot of different variations.
A ton. And some of the cons you go to, they give like an exclusive map.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go to Age of Steam Con, every included with admission, you get whatever the con maps for that year are.
And I told you the map I want to play eventually.
Yeah.
There was a map that was put out that's the human body.
Yeah.
And it's only got blue and red hexes on it, I think. Maybe it's got purple as well.
I haven't played that one, so
But
I forget.
it's
But
like a
that
limited
sounds
number
about
of color of hexes.
right. Yeah.
And I think you have to urbanize to get other colors on the body.
Yeah.
But like the red and blue signify like blood going in, blood going out.
That's cool.
Like oxygenated blood versus
Right.
Exhausted. So I do want to play that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of weird maps out there. I've played maps that were had a trick-taking element. So
Yeah.
depending on what cube you delivered, you could lead off the trick by delivering a cube of a color, and then other people would be forced to deliver a color or that color.
Yeah.
And if they couldn't deliver, then they could go off suit, so to speak, and deliver another cube. And then you got points for taking the trick or something like that.
So, I did talk to you about this before. So that was our top 7. But your favorite game that's not quite a train game, an honorable mention.
Probably go with Power Grid.
Funkenschlag.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was
It's
developing
got that feel. It's got the train game feel, and I think wasn't the original version train themed, although
Yeah.
I think a lot was changed between that version and the Power Grid version.
Yeah. Andrea.
I like Bus.
Yeah.
You're picking up people, taking them somewhere, dropping them off. Not a train game, but
Making
it's kind of like a
connections and stuff
It
like
does
that.
have a train
like-
station in it.
yeah.
It does.
So,
For mine, it's Airlines Europe. The precursor was Union Pacific. Then he turned it into a better game. I played Union Pacific a long time ago at Geekway. Union Pacific is a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Airlines Europe is one of my favorite intro stock games. I've
Yeah.
played it with so many different gaming levels, and it's never fallen flat for me yet.
yeah.
Airlines Europe is by Alan R. Moon that does Ticket to Ride. Fantastic game. Love to play it. And if it was a train game in its form, it probably would have been 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But Logan, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on, Rick.
And people can maybe come say hi to you at Moon City Con.
Maybe.
Maybe you'll play a train game.
Maybe.
But if they don't see you there, you'll be at Age of Steam Con?
Probably. I haven't bought my tickets yet
Oh.
because they haven't opened ticket sales yet. But
But you might be.
there's a good chance.
Good chance Logan will be at Age of Steam Con. But he is going to be at Moon City Con.
Yeah. I'm also going to be at Dome Con. I bought my ticket for that.
Yeah?
That's towards the end of August. I forget the exact dates. But
Nice.
So I'll be there at least for a couple days. There might be some conflict with my classes I'm taking. But
Oh, no.
I'll be there at least a couple days.
Nice.
Well, Logan, once again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
The 417Gamer podcast is recorded and produced by Andrea Smith and Rick Bagwell. We want to thank Logan for coming on and say hello at Moon City Con. Go play some games with him. Our intro music, Kind, Gentle, Beautiful Person, and our outro music, Making Up for Lost Time, was created by Origami Replica. For links to the music and the show notes, head on over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Hobby Gaming Network. But until then, keep gaming in the 417.